Hey guys, Mike here, the Detroit Borg with one more Galaxy Tab Pro to look at. This is the 10.1 inch, and as you know, this joins the 8.4 inch and the Note 12.2 inch. Very large tablet and small tablet. So this is the middle tablet, kind of here to take on the iPad Air. In fact, it's priced the same at $499. We also have a really high resolution display, which also once again bests the iPad Air, just as the 8.4 bests the iPad Mini with Retina display. So this is available in 16 or 32 gig capacities in white or black. Now this is the Wi-Fi only model, SMT520. There is a cellular version with LTE, which has a different processor. So this is similar to the Note Pro 12.2. This has the same processor as the Wi-Fi model, while the cellular version has a Snapdragon 800 processor, quad-core 2.3 gigahertz. Now this one is the Exynos 5 octa-core processor, which combines two quad-core processors, a 1.9 gigahertz Cortex A15 and a 1.3 gigahertz Cortex A7. The A7 is there for lower powered processes to conserve battery life. Now we have the same cameras as the other new tablets, 8 megapixel autofocusing main camera with 1080p and a 2 megapixel secondary camera with 1080p. 2 gigs of RAM instead of 3 gigs like you get in the 12.2, an 8220 milliamp hour battery, watch on IR LED for controlling your AV equipment, GPS and GLONASS, full HD playback. Now the display is LCD 10.1 inches WQXGA, just like the Tab Pro 8.4 and the Note Pro 12.2. So that's 2560 by 1600 and over 10.1 inches gives us a pixel density of 299. That's better than the iPad Air's 264 ppi. So I think we're all familiar with Samsung's packaging at this point. Pretty much looks the same for all devices. And this has the sort of wood grain finish. It's more recyclable using soy-based inks. So it's more environmentally friendly. So let's go ahead and crack the seal and get into this. Little tab here to pull out. There's our upside down tablet, Galaxy Tab Pro. Only in the Galaxy has its rewards, and it looks pretty dusty once again. For some reason, Samsung's eco-friendly packaging makes a lot of dust. So let's go ahead and lift this out of the packaging. There we go, still wrapped in plastic, and of course we'll say that for a minute and get to the accessories, which I think nobody really cares about because it's always the same. Pretty much the same literature / paperwork you get. We have the quick start guide. Only in the Galaxy has its rewards, just encourage you to register your devices for some benefits. Software update instructions, again, very easy. And our safety and warranty guide, which is in multiple languages. Now our accessories include a wall adapter, Samsung branded, and we have a micro USB 2.0 connector, so no USB 3.0 in this case like you get with the 12.2 and the Note 3. So once again, this is running Android 4.4 or KitKat, the latest version of Android with multi-windowing thanks to TouchWiz. So let's go ahead and peel off all of this plastic, starting with the back. And then the front, a little tab up here. And of course we have lots of plastic surrounding the edges, which we're going to also have to peel off here. Alright, so let's take a close look around. Of course we have a little more plastic here covering our camera module. So there we go, same camera module as the other tabs I've reviewed. So we have the 8 megapixel autofocusing camera, good for 1080p with an LED flash, which is nice to have. You can see we have this sort of faux leather finish on the back. I think it tends to look better in black than white, but it gives you a nice grippable texture. You can see kind of the stitching patterns sort of molded into the plastic. Gives you a more higher quality feel. If you look on edge, you can see it's actually thinner than the iPad Air, and it's just as heavy as the iPad Air, just 1 pound, so it's very lightweight, and again, directly taking on the iPad Air in many dimensions. So at the top, we'll find an IR LED blaster for controlling your AV equipment. You have your volume rocker, sleep wake button. On the side, you have your headphone jack, one of your left speakers, or your left speaker, there's only one left speaker. On the bottom we have our micro USB 2.0 port with a microphone down here, you can see it right there. We have our home button with our capacitive backlit controls. So we have our recent apps back button. On the side we have our MicroSD card slot, which is hidden behind this door. Supports 64 gig cards, and it does load apps from that card, so if you want to load apps on that card you can do that. We also have our right-firing stereo speaker. On the front we have Samsung branding with our 2 megapixel front-facing camera, good for 1080p video with an ambient light sensor. Now for the most part this looks very similar to the Galaxy Note 10.1 inch 2014 edition, which is at the top here. You can see it has that sort of book themed design. You can see it's got those ridges along the side. As you can see, it's thinner and lighter than that tablet, but of course loses the stylus in the process. So you can see they have the same controls in the same position, IR LED blaster. They even have the same camera modules. Along the side, you'll see the, of course, stylus is missing, but the same speakers with stereo sound, same SD card slot. Toward the bottom, you'll find your micro USB connection, still 2.0 for both devices. Same camera location, or not camera, but microphone location. Now on the left-hand side, we have another speaker grill and our headphone jack, and you can see it's a little thinner on the Tab Pro. Now if you look closely at the USB port, you can see they've actually kind of bumped it out to accommodate the thinner design. Now from the front, they mostly look identical. They have the same camera and sensors, but the buttons have changed. So if you look down here, you see we have a menu button on the Note versus the recent apps button on the Tab Pro. Now just like the 10.1-inch Tab 3 and the Note 2014 edition, these are geared toward landscape orientation with our Android keys down here. Our camera's up here with the IR blaster firing in that direction with the stereo speakers on the left-hand and right-hand side. In landscape orientation, you can see the bezels are thinner toward the left-hand and right-hand side. And you can see in landscape, or I'm sorry, portrait orientation, it feels a little awkward, but it's still pretty comfortable. And when it's this lightweight, it's less noticeable. All right, so let's go ahead and boot this up for the first time. I'm just going to tap and hold the power button. So we have those nice stereo speakers which give you a fuller sound. Alright, so let's take a look at the updated user experience. So this is again running TouchWiz, a new version of TouchWiz on Android 4.4 with a new lock screen effect. So you can see pretty much looks like classic TouchWiz. We have our home screens which we can pinch in and out to view or edit. So we can change which one we want to be the home screen, or we can add new home screens or take them up to remove. And then we have these two home screens which include apps. As you can see, it's geared toward professional users or enterprise customers like WebEx, Remote PC, eMeeting, and Handcom Viewer. All of these are generally not consumer apps. Handcom Viewer is an office suite which replicates apps like Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. We also have our app drawer, and as you can see, we have widgets and apps. You can pinch in and out to see all of your apps. They don't give you too many apps here. Again, they're geared toward professional users, so they've installed some standard Samsung apps, Google apps, as well as third-party apps. You can see we have a folder full of Samsung apps, which includes Knox Security, S Voice, World Clock, SideSync, which is kind of a pared-down version of Group Play. Basically, it's for sharing displays and images. And then we have our Google folder full of Google apps, standard apps such as Hangouts and Pictures. Of course, we have YouTube and other things like Samsung's video player and music player, contacts, the file browser. A lot of this is also on the home screen. Now we also have an updated version of the calendar app, which is just a lot cleaner and smoother than it was before. We have a new memo app, which again is also cleaner, more simple. It's basically a note-taking app. And then we have Dropbox, so you can get 50 gigs of free storage with your Dropbox account when you purchase one of these tablets and log on. Now we can see all the widgets they offer here, so quite a few widgets. We can see the apps we have downloaded. We can go to our editor here, so we can search widgets or uninstall widgets, and that'll change if we go to apps. So you can see you can create folders, sort by, uninstall or disable apps, set wallpaper, all of that is also available from here. Now we also have our new drop-down notification shade, which includes all of these quick access toggles, but not all of them appear in this view. If you want to see all of them, tap up here. That reveals all of them, and also reveals some of the features in here, which include Smart Stay and Smart Pause. Of course, we don't have the S Pen, so Air View and Air Command and all that other stuff is not included here. But Smart Stay and Smart Pause, pretty familiar features now. They go back to the GS3. So Smart Stay basically watches your eyes, prevents the screen from going to sleep. Smart Pause pauses video playback, again, when your eyes leave the screen. So of course we have airplane mode, blocking mode, which again is a do not disturb feature, which you can set or just enable. Reading mode, which only works within certain apps like Google Play Books app, basically changes the screen color for better reading conditions. Screen mirroring, so you can mirror the device's screen wirelessly to another device like a Samsung HD TV. Multi-window mode, which we're going to explore. Power saving mode. Now if you tap and hold any one of these, it takes you directly to the settings panel where you have a lot more control options. So for example, we're in the power saving mode, and you can toggle on specific features when you're in power saving mode. Now if you go back down to the drop-down shade, you can see we have our brightness slider as well, and then we have our volume controls as well. And of course you see our notifications, which are expandable, and you can clear them all if you want, or jump quickly to your settings panel. That's one way of getting quickly to your settings panel. As you can see, they've also redesigned this so it's much more cleaner, much more uniform with these nice uniform, colorful badges and icons. So again, this tab viewer, and we're going to explore this a bit later. Now in terms of our Android keys, again, we now have a recent apps button, which brings us this sort of horizontal recent apps control. So you can see all of our recent apps and we can jump right to them if we want. This also gives us access to our task manager. And then we also have the option to close all of these apps at once. Now you can also just swipe certain apps out of the way just by swiping up or swiping down. And then some of these controls have dual purposes. So for example, if you tap and hold the home button, it takes you to Google now. Okay, Google, what's the weather like?
It's 36 degrees and overcast in Rochester.
And then if you double tap the home button, it takes you to S-Voice. What's the weather like?
Here is the weather for Auburn Hills, Michigan. Today is cloudy and 35 degrees.
Now we also have this new multi-window mode, which pops up when you swipe in from the right edge. You do have to go past the edge and swipe in, otherwise you just swipe between your home screens. So you can swipe in from the edge, or you of course can use the back button by tapping and holding on it. So again, these are the apps that are available in multi-window mode. Now there's actually two sort of multi-window modes. You can just tap on any one of these apps and it launches them into a separate window. So for example, if you launch Chrome this way, it gives you this window here. Now you can open up to 3 of these at once, so let's go ahead and do that. So let's do Gmail, YouTube. So there we go, we have 3 windows we can move around. Now the more windows you have open, the slower this tends to respond, but you can resize them. So for example, you can resize them manually, and then you can maximize them or you can minimize them. And when you minimize them, it basically turns them into these little badges that you can move around, and if you want to bring them back up, just tap on them and then move them back into place. Of course, you can also close them, but this means that you can have up to 5 windows open at once. And that's because you can also do side-by-side windowing at the same time. So I'm just going to close these out now. This also means that you could watch videos in a separate window like YouTube videos. Now in terms of side-by-side windowing, you basically bring up your multi-window mode and you drag and drop apps to the screen. So for example, if we drag and drop Chrome to the screen, fills it up. And now I can drag another app to place it side by side. So for example, Gmail. So I now have 2 apps I can work in side by side, and I can resize the windows as I want. Of course, this also works in portrait or landscape orientation. And you're limited to 2 windows in this case, while the Note 12.2 gives you 4 windows. So you could drop up to 4 windows in this viewer. You can also drop other apps into each window and it will preserve the recent apps into that window. So for example, if I grab YouTube, drop it over here onto my Gmail app, replaces it with YouTube, I can continue doing this, adding other apps. So for example, let's add the gallery app. Just drop it in place. Replaces it. So what's happening now is if I go to this blue dot toward the center, I can go to recent apps and I can choose one of the other apps and jump right to it. So I actually have more multitasking options besides just having 2 windows side by side. So there you go, goes back to Gmail. If I want to jump back to another app, it takes me back to my gallery app. Sometimes it works great, sometimes it doesn't. There we go. And now, of course, you have other options here, so you can switch between left-hand and right-hand side. And if you want to control the other window, you basically have to tap to the right edge of it. Just tap to the left-hand side, and you can go to your multitasker here. And as you can see, I just have 1 window open because I haven't dragged other windows to that one. So there you go. You can also do other things like maximize a window, close a window, copy one item from one window to the other window. So for example, if I want to maximize this window, just tap maximize. There you go. So as I mentioned, this in theory means that you could open up to 7 windows or 5 windows at once. So for example, if I go back to my multi-window tray here, I could also open up, let's say, the gallery. So it'll open up in a separate window and actually picks up where I last left off. I can go to Hangouts, and then I could also go to My Files. Now, of course, this does get really laggy if you do all of these windows at one time, especially depending on what each window is doing. Some are more resource intensive than the others. So you can see quite a few windows open on this one tablet. Now, if you like to have these 2 windows open side by side often, you can actually create a custom recipe. So go to your multi-window mode, go to your editor down here, go to Create, and you can create a custom recipe. Click OK, adds it to the tray here. So if you slide it out now, you have Chrome/YouTube. So for example, go to Chrome/YouTube, opens it up for me. Now to the left or right of the main home screens is the Magazine UX, which is a flipboard powered widget board. So basically these are news stories sort of spaced out into these little tiles here, which aggregate different stories related to certain subjects. So for example, I have sports, photos and design, arts and culture, science and technology, and news. Up here we have our email, calendaring, our office apps, as well as business news. Now we can refresh the feed so it updates to the latest information. You can also move between news stories, like so. And then if you want to see any one of these items, all you have to do is tap on it. It takes you to a full screen viewer. And then you can tap again to see the specific article. And then you can read through it, basically like you're flipping a magazine. Now you can edit the source of the feed by going to this little menu icon, and up here you can select specifically what you want to be fed into those individual widgets. So you can see that it's automatically selecting top stories for you, so it can do it automatically, or you can select specifically which ones you want. So for example, you can see mobile, science TV, space, tech, 9 to 5 Mac, all things D, Android Authority, Ars Technica, The Verge, BGR, all of that stuff is in here. And you can select specifically which one you would want. Now you can also edit how many home screens you have here, and you can add specific categories to each home screen. So for example, I just have 2 by default, but you can add a third. You're limited to 3. I think the 12.2 gives you 4. So here, if I go to the home screen, oops, let's go out again here. We select this one. We can select specific categories here. So you can see we have no categories here selected right now. If we go to this one, you'll see the categories they've already added. Same with that one. So if I go here, I can add things like news, and then style. Then I can also add social networking such as Twitter and YouTube. You can see it automatically resizes the tiles for you. And then you can add certain applications such as music. Now if you want one of these windows to be your home screen, just tap this little home icon above. So when you press the home button, it takes you to that specific page. So for example, instead of this being your main home screen, you tap home and now it takes you to Magazine UX. Now if you want to change that, just go back to your home screens, pinch in and out, select which one you want to be your home screen. There we go. And now when you press home, it takes you to the classic viewer. Now you can also edit this. So if you tap and hold on them, you can move them around, reposition them, or resize them if you had room. Right now I don't have room. Or you can take them up to remove. You can also change the layout here, which basically just rearranges them for you. If you go to widgets here, it takes you to your widget panel, which allows you to add more widgets. Now you can also quickly switch between home screens or Magazine UX just by tapping these icons down here. Now in terms of the keyboard, we actually have the same one from the Note Pro 12.2. We even have this directional D-pad here, which is kind of nice. The keys kind of have a dimensional look to it, and when you type on them, you get a sort of a typewriter sound effect. And of course, we have lots of options, including a voice keyboard. This is a test of the voice keyboard, period. We can also go to our keyboard options. So we do have a split keyboard, which I find very useful, which you can also move around. This is very similar to the iPad. It gives you a nice thumbable keyboard, so you can type comfortably in landscape orientation or portrait orientation without having to kind of reach across the device with your thumb. We also have handwriting input. So although we don't have an S Pen here, you can handwrite. You can just use your finger if you want. And it does a pretty good job recognizing both punctuation and your terrible handwriting. And it's fairly quick, so it actually works pretty well. Now in terms of the settings panel, we have our tabs up here for connections, device controls, and general. Under connections, you have Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, airplane mode, data usage, location, more networks for VPN setup as well. There is no NFC technology in any of these tablets. Nearby devices for DLNA, which you can enable, and you do have screen mirroring here, which you can turn on. This allows you to broadcast the display of this wirelessly to an HDTV, such as a Samsung TV. We have sound controls, so we have lots of options here. So we can enable touch sound effects, screen lock sound effects, haptic feedback, and that sort of thing. Display, so you can change your display such as touch key light duration, screen mode. You can change the options you have here either to adapt display or dynamic, etc. We have multi-windowing mode, which you can enable or disable. Lock screen, so you can enable shortcuts. So shortcuts basically are apps that appear on the lock screen. So for example, if you want to add Chrome here, just go to plus, select Chrome, and if you don't want the native WebKit browser, just take it to delete. And now if you go to the lock screen, you'll see them here, and you can quickly launch them just like that. You also have your wallpapers, so we have home screen, home and lock screen, and you can also adjust this directly from the home screen just by tapping and holding anywhere on the home screen, get you to those controls. You can also add folders, pages, apps, and widgets from here. So for example, if you want to create a folder, you can do that as well. Or if you're on the home screen, if you tap and hold one of these apps, you can take it up to create a folder, or go to app info to find more about this device or about the app, or remove one. So for example, you can go up to app info. Shows us the info, again, takes you basically to the app manager. Under controls, we also have language and input. We have voice control, which are off by default, but basically this allows you to control things like your alarm, camera, and music just by using your voice. So for example, you can tell your alarm to stop or snooze. Camera, you can say shoot, smile, or cheese to take a photo or record video. Music, you can say next, previous, play, pause, etc. Now under motions, these are less useful. So zoom, just to show you this, basically you hold two fingers on the display, move it up and down like this, and you can zoom in and out. We also have browse an image, same principle here. You tap somewhere on the screen and move the device left to right. Now we have palm motions, so we have screen capture. Basically what happens is you can swipe your hand across the display to grab a screen capture. This works anywhere in the system. And then we can mute or pause music just by palming our hand over the screen, just like that. We also have smart screen features such as Smart Stay, Smart Rotation, and Smart Pause. Again, Smart Stay, all of these are off by default, but Smart Stay basically monitors the presence of your eyes, prevents the screen from going to sleep. We also have Smart Rotation, which again uses the camera to monitor the orientation of your eyes versus the orientation of the tablet. So if you want to lay on your side and you don't want it to go automatically into portrait orientation, it's smart enough to determine that. We also have Smart Pause, which pauses playback of video when you avert your eyes from the video. Now if you ever want to enable or disable any of these smart screen features, just go up to your quick access toggles and either turn them on or turn them off. Now under general, we have our accounts, our cloud storage in both Samsung and Dropbox, backup and reset, date and time, accessories, application manager. This is where you can see everything that's on the SD card, anything that's running, all of the apps and the resources they're using, default applications for certain tasks, users, so you can add additional users. Again, this is the latest version of Android, so you can add other users to log into the device. Battery information, so you can see the entire timeline for the battery information and specifically what each app is using. Power and saving mode, storage, so you can see how much storage we're using. Security, and about device. Now just to give you some idea of the size differences, here we have the Tab Pro 8.4, then the 10.1, and the Note Pro 12.2. So we have a three-pronged approach for the Pro Series tablets. Only the 12.2 has the stylus at this time. Now just to give you some idea of the size differences between this and the iPad Air, as you can see the iPad Air is sort of geared toward portrait orientation more so than landscape. So this is more widescreen than the iPad Air, but it's actually even thinner than the iPad Air, just slightly. It's kind of hard to tell, and it's just as light, about 1 pound, and both of them have excellent displays. Of course, the display is more 4:3 here than widescreen, and the pixel density is also higher on the Tab Pro 10.1. Now, one of the benefits of having a widescreen tablet is that widescreen video fills it up better than something like the 4:3 aspect ratio of the iPad. Of course, we also have these stereo speakers in landscape orientation, so they sound pretty good. They're pretty loud and clear, although it would be nice if they faced the user as opposed to facing out toward the edges.
Faster PCI storage.
Now let's take a quick look at our camera app. So we have tap to focus, we can pinch in and out to zoom, we can shoot our photograph, we can tap and hold the shutter release to take up to 20 photos at once, and then we can record video. While recording video, we can snap a photo, pause it, resume recording, we can pinch in and out to zoom, tap to focus, and of course we can stop it. Now we also have our modes here, so we have the standard array of Samsung camera app modes such as Beauty Face Best Photo, Best Face Sound and Shot Drama, Rich Tone HDR Eraser, Panorama, Sports, and Auto. And if we go up here, we'll find Dual Shot Mode. So Dual Shot Mode basically allows you to record both cameras at the same time, and there I am recording. You can change the size of the thumbnails, whoops, just by dragging them like this. And of course you can also change the surround of that thumbnail to many others such as oval blur, instant pick, many options here. We also have lots of options up here. I'm not going to go through all of them for both still camera, video camera, settings, and then we can also use our voice to snap photos if we enable voice control. So we can say cheese record video. Now, taking a look at our Geekbench 3 scores, we can see that the two big tablets perform about the same, while the 8.4 is a little on the low side. Now, compare this to the iPad Air, which is ahead on all accounts for the other tablets, or compared to the other tablets. But then if we look at the Nexus 7, we can see that it does do a bit better than the Nexus 7, at least on the single-core score. So in conclusion, there's a lot to like about the Tab Pro 10.1 inch. It's nice, lightweight, and thin with a beautiful high-resolution display that even bests the iPad Air. Looks great off-axis with bright, vivid colors, deep contrast, not much light bleeding along the edges. Also has those great stereo speakers and that widescreen aspect ratio for great video watching. And you have a lot of software capabilities such as multi-windowing mode and a new and improved version of TouchWiz, which just looks a lot better. We also have Magazine UX, which I actually really like. Again, I like services like Flipboard or HTC's Blink Feed, which aggregates information into a quick viewer. And I really find that useful. And of course, you can ignore it if you don't want to use it. In the end, you're still left with a tablet with great hardware, great display, and some great features. Some of them you don't have to use. Unfortunately, TouchWiz still tends to be a resource hog. Performance tends to be slow here and there. I did close all of the apps here to make performance a little smoother. And of course, if you're using multi-windowing mode, this does tend to be more resource intensive. It would be great if they had included 3 gigs of RAM, because we may see better performance here, especially since the Note 10.1 2014 edition comes with 3 gigs of RAM as well. So the Tab Pro 10.1 is definitely an interesting device, lightweight, thin, and a beautiful display. And I think Samsung's done a really nice job here with a new and improved TouchWiz. So that is going to do it for me in this review. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video. Alright guys, so this is a test of the front-facing camera. Again, 2 megapixels, 1080p video at 30 frames per second, so it's pretty decent. Again, it gives you an idea of the microphone performance as well as the camera. So now let's go outside and take a look at the main camera. Alright, this again is Zoe and Chloe down here in the foyer, ready to go outside to test out the camera. So, as you can see, this works just as like all the other Tab Pro Galaxy cameras. You can pinch in and out to zoom, which is just digital zooming, so it's basically cropping the video. Alright, so let's go outside and take a look at performance outside. It is very windy, so you're probably going to hear a lot of wind noise.